Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with it. So are we waiting?
Yeah, I think we can start. So you are a PhD student of Gerardo.
Yes. So I'm a bit familiar with what you did in your PhD, contract project.
Yes.
And I also worked a bit with using GF to go from that to natural language for control.
So you know GF quite well.
Yeah, you could say that.
So what work is it GF related to legal texts, do you know? Or texts that are
Not much.
trying to get close to legal terminology?
Yeah, very little. I'm not sure what else there is apart from the little that I've done actually. I know there's some work which is using GF to on sort of software specification languages. It's not legal, but that's the closest thing that I know.
Okay.
But my
So the software specification languages, would there be some form of control of the languages for writing the
yeah, of course, it's a
specifications?
control language. I mean, in a way, the specification language is already defined by some grammar or some specification, so that makes it controllable. And as you're saying, I mean,
Yes,
the
yes.
biggest if you have something formal like CL or some other logic, and you build a control natural language based on that, then you can make it very nice and it looks very good. But I find that there's a big gap between any CNL that you write and an actual legal text. Trying to I think this will be a huge problem, is trying to go automatically from a text that a lawyer has written or whatever into this control natural language. That for me is a
Yes.
kind of big step.
So have you worked with controlled natural languages also?
In the context of GF, yes,
In the
and a bit
context
of
of GF?
attempt to.
Okay.
So maybe John, you can mention about the speed that we have with the paper on writing the CNL. I mean, how much time did it take you from going from
Yes,
the
what
model
I was just saying. I mean, if you build your CNL with the logic in mind, then it goes quite easily and it looks quite nice. But when you compare that CNL then to the real natural language out there in the wild, then you know it's very difficult to automatically go from that.
Okay.
I mean, we use CL as a target language. But then, as you know, when you go from natural language to CL, you have to model that, and you have to make a lot of abstractions. And then, even with CNL, with the CNL as intermediate language, you have to make a lot of decisions on how to write things. So it's quite painful to, anyway. It's easier than going to CL, but yeah, but still.
Yes, but controlled natural languages, you can see them as first order logic. So this discourse representation theory, in my understanding, is the same as first order logic. This is what I understand. It is not only a subset, whereas the logics that we work with, this only deontic logic, they are subsets of first order logic.
Yeah. But still, imagine that you want to automatically read a sentence in natural language and get the corresponding CNL sentence. Yeah. This is
Yes.
the idea that you would like. You don't want to model it. You would like ideally to parse the natural language text and get the CNL. Ideally, yeah.
The constrained natural language.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's quite hard. I mean, and you end up by doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The idea is that you work directly with the controlled natural language. So the idea is that the texts are written in the controlled
Okay.
natural
Yeah.
language.
This is what we all also are aiming somehow to the new project that John is working.
This is what I said there, how we go smooth from existing terms of services to a controlled legal language.
But when you say smooth, you mean manually? not
Yeah, so
automatically.
yeah, manually maybe, with the help of the experts, of the legal experts.
I have a slightly different question. I mean, you mentioned many different types of logics, deontic and temporal and description. I mean, are you suggesting that you will have some union of all of these things.
Yeah, this is what I think. Either we need a logic or one logic that has capabilities of several of these logics. So like we tried combining the ontic logic and logics of actions, so this has been done, and then combining with also with temporal logic, and it has been done. So you can see that you can combine logics. But how much, then I don't know. So, or maybe you can just use on the side some of this logic. So only to get information, for example, about the actions. So you have actions, but actions are related one to each other. And this relation is given through knowledge representation. You take this information from an ontology. So doing one action, what does it mean? Well, it means the same as doing this other action, because they are somehow having the same effect, or they are the same. And this you know from the ontology. Well, you don't need to combine the description logics with your logics of handling norms. But when you handle norms and actions, then you want to ask the ontology, is this action the same as the text, as the action specified in the text? And you just ask the ontology. Or doing this action also accomplishes what the action in the text says, because you can do more stuff, and then you also do what the action in the what is specified in the terms of service. So this you can ask only the ontology engine. So you don't need to combine this logic, but you can access it on the sides. So yeah, can you tell a little about you somehow?
Yeah, one of the use cases might be grading terms of service for available websites. They don't have problems with creating terms of service, but for instance, right now, anti-spam law define some rules, and you have law for anti-spamming, and you have companies which give other websites with a lot of users this service to send emails, but they want to check their terms of service to see if they are following the law.
Okay. Their terms of services are fitting this anti-spam law.
Yeah, first their terms of service should fit in the law. That should be that there should be modeling and requirements. You have models for those laws, right? You know,
Yeah. So the requirements normally would be specified in a logic formalism. So it's a logic formula, and then this logic formula, it is respected on a set of models. So somehow the interpretation of a formula is given as a set of models in which the formula is respected, and this should be one of them. This is how we generate the verification.
Yeah.
Or
The first step is checking terms of service of those websites to give them a service if they follow the law.
Okay.
Then they have to check, they have to ask them if they correctly follow these laws. For instance, all of the law is not about their terms of service. They have to ask them if they have link for subscription or unsubscription in mail contents, or they should give information about the dates of subscriptions, or the when they present list of emails for them, they have to define how they update the mailing list. Yeah.
Yes.
But those parts should be that accept TOS, right? That monitoring, I think, part in like checking if they actually follow the law.
I think it's a different problem because what you are talking is about a theory of term of service. I mean, you have now a satisfaction relation where you have on the left hand side you have a term of service, on the right hand side you have property.
Yes. So
yeah.
we have this
Now,
satisfaction relation.
what you're
We know what
mentioning is
it
a
means.
conformance relationship, where what you have in the left hand side you have the law, on the right hand side what you have is your particular term of service, and you want to be sure that your term of service conforms with the law. That is a refinement relationship or an implication. It's a different thing, but it's related. It's not exactly that accept terms of service. You need a theory.
When you verify the terms of service, then what is the accept to us?
Now you're proving properties about the terms of service.
Oh.
Yes, so these requirements, yeah, so you have one property, you have another property, and you check these properties, each of them you check against the model to see if they are satisfied with the idea. But you can also specify, so this law can also be, the governing law can be interpreted as a series of properties. We can think of that. And then you can see if those properties are
But I think it's the other way around, yeah, because here, if you write in the left-hand side of relationship, you have your term of service.
Exactly.
Yeah. But here it's the other way around. You have the law and the term of service come on the right. So you check conformance, you check implication. You have to prove that your term of service is an instance of the law.
Yes, okay, yes, sure.
So it's more a theory of term of service. I mean,
Yeah,
it's an interesting
I
question.
think this question is related also to governing law. So I think this is what you, or governing policies. So this terms of service is the case, but in the law of the country, for example, or the law of European Union, yeah, where there are laws, as you say, anti-spam law, or laws for protecting consumers. So these terms of services somehow are with respect to also governing law. But having a model, usually what the people drafting the terms of service or drafting contracts, they are interested in finding inconsistencies. So when you would put together the governing law and the terms of service, then you would try to find these inconsistencies in the model that you get. So ideally, terms of services are some kind of legal contract. Governing law should also be some kind of legal contract. And you would want to be able to have them together. Well, yeah, it would be the same formalism. So you would just put them together. And then you would check for inconsistencies. Inconsistencies will show exactly what you are trying to find. So if you find an inconsistency, then it means that something is wrong with how you define your terms of services with respect to the law that you put together. This is how I understand it.
Yeah, but next, as you explained on iTunes sample, you explained that you want to restrict users to follow the law.
Exactly, to follow what they agree, this thing, yes. So
Yes.
once you accept, you can check sequences of actions. So because this much of the time specifies what you are allowed to do, what actions you are allowed to do. Actions that are specified in here, of course, there are other actions that are not related to this. Yeah, so this would be the monitoring.
Yeah, that's monitoring that I mentioned afterwards. Yeah, this, all of the requirements of the law is not in their terms of service. Some part of it is in their actions, right? In action of those websites that should follow this law to
Yes,
get this
yes.
to have access to these
yes,
kinds
yes,
of
yes,
services.
yes, yes.
For instance, they should have pages for subscription and unsubscription. They cannot create subscription without unsubscription. And
Okay,
these
okay.
actions need monitoring too.
Yes, you're right. Aha. Yeah, you are going into a different direction. Yeah, this is interesting, of course. So you need to know the law or to model the law somehow, and then the website. So this is not about the users that agree with the terms of service, but somehow the whole website that
Yeah,
provides this terms of service.
There are websites that using services from other websites. Those websites which their services are sending emails, and other websites give create some ads or newsletters for their own users, and to accessing to those other services like sending emails. Right now, if you send 1,000 emails, Google will instantly block your email. But if you want to be in whitelists, you have to pay those uh, companies to be in Google whitelist. So they actually monitor all websites who don't follow these terms of services, and they don't give you the service at the first place. And they keep their own whitelist, claim that Google accept their
Yes.
whitelist.
Yeah, okay, this sounds interesting application. Right? Checking that the email sites are not actually spam sites.
And their businesses actually whole their business is built up checking all applications, like checking their terms of service, their actions, and yeah,
And
those.
they must be very careful with how many emails they send or where do they send those emails. This is what you're saying. So
Yeah,
must be very
they
careful
they
with-
do that. They're doing this. Like Mailchimp, SendGrid. There's lots of websites that they actually automate this by checking if you have the link on your emails. You have yeah, all things.
Okay.
First step is checking there's yeah, I think it's useful for them. You can advertise them for these videos.
One question that I was saying also during the talk is about privacy, because terms of services, many people here at FXCons, they are concerned about privacies, and when you accept terms of services of some Google or Apple service provider, then you are upset with the privacy that they take from you. But how do you quantify privacy, or how do you specify privacy in a way that you can check it against a logical model? This would be a question that I have.
So regarding to that, I have one question, because when you say privacy in terms of service, what do you mean? The privacy of the provider know which term of services you have, or what?
So this is about the privacy of the user. So the user that that becomes a user of that service, he is concerned about his privacy. Yes.
I think I may have a solution for that problem. In the formal logic department in Chalmers, they are working on lattices applied to, well, in particular JavaScript security. So when you have a mashed up web with different sources of information, you can ensure the information you get from one place doesn't get to another if you don't allow it to go.
Okay.
You probably can try to model the privacy concerns as a lattice, where you have the different parties that can have access to the data, and you can define which data each party will have access to.
But privacy is a little more than access control, in fact. I mean, what they are doing there is language-based security and it's information flow, that of course is related to privacy, but it's not enough.
What do you think could be missing from that case?
Because we are working in the same group there with these people, and we have been discussing about this issue. That they, first of all, their solutions are very much at the language level.
Yeah.
So
I know.
you provide.
But you can use the same framework to model the underlying policy on privacy behind the.
I mean, it's a little bit difficult to model certain things. Maybe you can give the example that you have in Facebook. It's not easy to model. I mean, they have, it's related, but it's not the same kind of privacy.
Yeah, so the thing, if I understood correctly, here you have the ontology for representing the knowledge, and then you have the requirement, you do model checking there. But in information flow, in that case, so what you have is you are tracking the data, how the data flows around the, but you I mean, you cannot kind of specify the same things. And here, so in our case, what we are doing is in epistemic logic, and it's also for modeling the knowledge. And yeah, but it's different because you talk about a different. That's why I ask what does mean privacy here, because depending on the privacy policy that you want to enforce, you need one logic or other logic or one technique or a different technique.
So the terms of service would specify about how data is handled. No, this is what they say. Maybe they say some very general things like all your data is ours. So it's very simple to check that. But the idea is the user has to be able to specify a privacy requirement. So he should be able to specify a logic formula or something like this that you want to check against the terms of service. And the terms of service says what happens to your data. How does it travel? Does it go to third parties that they have and so on? So I guess privacy, as you say, is controlling the flow of information, the flow of data.
Yeah, but it's more than that. That is my point, and probably just to come back to your comment, is that it's not easy, but it has been a standard in all this community information flow or access control to be able to track where your data goes. But there is, this is what is called explicit, but when you want to detect the implicit flow, it's not easy. Because obviously you can infer things. I mean, it's not everything that you observe is what is disclosed. It's also what you can infer from that. And that is where these techniques are limited.
Well, but you actually have no way of... wait, you mean what you can infer from the policy itself, or for
the data
what
that is being passed around? So
yeah, I mean,
so
there is a very simple example in Facebook that you can
Yes,
mention.
for example, so the thing is, in information flow, you can say, okay, this piece of information is pre-baked and it can be sent to Google. You can say that, and this is very explicit. But for example, in the logic that we are working with, you can say, if my policy says that only my friends can know my location, then when one of if I go and visit one of my friends and my friend posts, I'm here with you, and then this post can be read for other people who is not my friend, then there are some logic, like epistemic logic, that are able to detect that kind of knowledge that is leaked. I mean, the user is not saying my location directly, but in the post there is some implicit knowledge that leak the information. So that an information flow is not able to handle that so far.
You see, you have knowledge about somebody that is about where I am. I'm posting something about somebody else, and the policy, the privacy policy of this person has to check and infer from my text, first of all, where I am, who I am, whether he is the person I'm mentioning, and then check that indeed the text saying here, because you can say I'm in Amsterdam, and that is explicit location, but you can use in natural language, you can use a lot of other,
but
that is not easy to make all these inferences, it's not possible to get from the techniques that exist today.
but I think you are making a really big mistake here. You are assuming that privacy policies have control over what other users can do with your information. Privacy policies only apply to the party that is accepting them, in this case Facebook, not to the users that are using Facebook. If I, for example, state to everybody that you are at FSCOS, you have no control over that because I haven't signed any privacy policy stating that I will handle your personal data with care.
That is a definition you're going to give to privacy. I mean, if I want to use Facebook and I have a privacy policy and I have a rich language to express that, and my policy said that only my friends can know something about me, I want to enforce that. That is how it is. I mean, currently it's not possible, and that is the limitation.
But the problem is that from a legal point of view, that's not possible either. Because that other person that is publishing the data has not signed any kind of agreement with you. In best case, he could have signed an agreement with Facebook, and he might be actually violating the policies of Facebook by publishing other person's data. But that's then Facebook that has to control you don't publish other person's data. Not you could have no way of controlling that.
You
Yes,
might not
I-
have, but
I-
you might have. I mean,
Yep.
if I want to use a system, of course I can be very overly conservative and simply don't do anything, and then I don't use it. And of course, but it's not what you are trying to do. You are trying to do that. We know that social networks are here to stay,
Yes.
and you want to use it in a
You-
more
you're
practical
also
way as
talking-
possible. So of course you are trying to reach that stage.
We are
Today it's
talking
not
also
like that.
now about enforcing privacy policies, but how about only checking with quantitative measures? So how much information is being leaked somehow? Yeah. So how much privacy we have? This is also because
Yeah.
you are talking about nothing being revealed about you. So this is like, and then you are enforcing this. You are enforcing nothing to be revealed from you. But maybe you are just interested in how much is it revealed.
Yeah, but
So it's not about yes or no, 100% privacy, but how much privacy do you have? This is also what I'm
Yeah.
curious about.
I think, why don't we try to reuse the Google PageRank system for that? You can model the different parties as a set, for example, of web pages, and then each different kind of data can be given a particular value. So you can model whether the data flow is going to go from one place to another, and then that second place might deliver the data to a third place. In which case it means that the first place will deliver the data to the other three places and will have then a worse score when it comes to privacy policies.
Yes, this could be interesting.
But again, all of that is explicit. So
Of course, the problem is that it's very hard to model anything that is implicit on what the users do. I mean, usually what you want to score is not that much what others will do, but what the person you are making an agreement with will do with what you give to them.
but why? Okay. Let's see.
I mean,
But I mean, the thing is, okay, that's what you can do now, right now, today.
yeah,
But maybe you want to do more.
of course, and if you manage to do it, I will be really happy.
Right? Me too.
Another question about that modeling part. This is changing subject.
Don't worry.
didn't want to. Sorry. When we have law, there might be happen to have ambiguity in law, and sometimes it happens that we have ambiguity in terms of services. When you change sentences in law and put it in your terms of service, there can be ambiguity in your terms of service. You actually, when you use natural language processing to convert text to models, you're making it like, how do you you use like descriptive logic to handle those?
So you are asking how ambiguities can be, or if ambiguities are removed completely by going to a model. This is what you are concerned, or you still want ambiguities to be in the model
Yeah.
also?
How do you model ambiguity?
Yeah, so there is one logic which is called defeasible logic, and this is what one idea that I'm thinking. So defeasible logic is a logic where these things are so some property is true, but if more information is gained, then that property can become not true anymore. So that property that formula is defeated, so to say. Okay. Okay, maybe it's not useful for others.
Yeah,
I don't know
my
how
problem is
ambiguity
sometimes
is to be handled.
sometimes it's easier to just copy paste the actual law into your terms of service to say I'm following this law. There's no way to have other words to express that law in your terms of service.
But when you mean ambiguity, what do you mean? Because on the model level, ambiguity is just non-determinism or branching.
Yeah, but how do you make those requirements? We want to check if the text have those requirements, but those requirements came from models. Models came from written law, right? And if you want to create models from law, you have to first accept that there is no ambiguity in law.
And usually you have, and sometimes they want to have ambiguity. I mean, if you talk with lawyers, they say that they want to decide. Maybe that's why you go to court very often. Otherwise, when ambiguous, because there are common practices and it's kind of desirable to get ambiguity. So sometimes you want to keep them, these ambiguities. And when you don't want them, this is where you can do consistency checking at the model level. But sometimes you want to keep these ambiguities in there.
So,
But ambiguity does not necessarily mean something unknown, but it can mean something that can be either this or that.
Yeah.
So
that's
this can also be ambiguity. Ambiguity in natural language, or say, or in understanding, because you don't necessarily know if it's this or that, but you know that it can be both. So this kind of ambiguity you could have.
Yeah, and in logic is that a choice operator or an or a branching in an automata.
Or in
that's
the knowledge
it's not a problem to
representation.
represent this in ambiguity. It's not a problem.
But you are saying that lawyers maybe want ambiguities in their contracts. This is one view from the lawyers, but these people in computers and law in Oslo, they said that those that make the laws, so how are they called? Yeah, So those like in the parliament that are defining the laws, they are interested in not having ambiguities at all. Actually, those would like to have a way to write the law so that it's not ambiguous. Actually, so lawyers maybe would like the ambiguities, they say, so that they go into the court and have something to argue about. But those that make the law, they are interested in not having the ambiguity.
I want to make a related point. So you gave as an example that the terms of service from some company says we own all your data. And then I can have a requirement which says don't share my email address with a third party. Now these are conflicting, but if you define the action in those terms, then how are the verifier going to detect that these are
So
conflicting?
this is where you want to have knowledge representation, so that you understand that email is a kind of data.
Right. So you want to have some kind of dictionary of actions and some hierarchy between all
Yes.
of these.
This is what knowledge representation does. This is what an ontology does. It defines this complex dictionary. That's why I said that we want ontologies for legal terminology.
So you can't create a new terms of service and introduce your own actions without also contributing to the
Yes.
ontologies.
Well, of course you can. Yeah.
And
If you are working directly in the system, so with the controlled language and then you would also update the law ontology that is being used. And I think this system will somehow change itself all the time, over time, and then it will improve, because you see all the terms of, more and more terms of services you have in there, and more terminology you would have in there, so somehow it is very little, the more time passes, it is very little new information that is being added into the system. Actually, these people in TOS-DR, terms of services didn't read, this is, I think the webpage is TOS-DR.org. So what they are doing, they are having 20, 30 websites, and what they are concerned about is monitoring terms of services, because terms of services are being changed, and not always users are notified. So they are monitoring because they know where they are, and they have a crawler that sees when something is changed in the terms of service. So this means it is only little that you need to add to the model, for example. So if you would take their thing, then you would just monitor the existing terms of services, and whenever they change, you just have to deal with the little part. So if it is something new, so then it's only a little part compared to a whole new terms of service. So what they do, they only try to analyze using humans, so they just read this more important terms of services there, Amazon and so on, and they are putting some visual interpretation of how good these terms of services are. So they have a few requirements, so to say, but they are like in their understanding, it's not in any logic or anything like that. And they are analyzing using their legal knowledge, they're experts, and they are putting some visual interpretation of that. So these people already are doing something to help requirements and terms of service. But you see, it's not at the level of the user at all. It's over there, and you can just go and see, okay, it's a lot of green in here, so then it's good terms of service for this website that I'm in there. So I will go for it. I will accept. This is what they provide somehow. So you came a little late, but are you interested in terms of services or automating the work in the terms of services in any way?
Not specifically. I'm interested in formal methods and
In verification
language
and model
processing.
taking.
Yeah.
Okay. Language processing, like in natural language processing?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay. So here we were talking about terms of service texts.
Yes,
And working with controlled natural languages like Attempto. So, but this should be for the legal domain, and I know only a very little work about legal domain and controlled natural languages. Do you know more?
I think maybe I have seen this in a presentation for a programming language course at Chalmers.
Okay.
Is this research from Chalmers?
No, so maybe you've seen a Chalmers translation using grammatical framework.
This wasn't the it was specifically about terms of service actually.
Was in Dave Sands' course?
Yeah, the frontiers.
Then it
of-
was my talk.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So what was it about?
Yeah, it's very much about the same thing.
Okay.
It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But it, the general idea is the same.
So were you using something specific there? Do you
No.
have some other specific technologies that you are thinking of using? And you were not working with this TOS text, but you were working
No,
with the software specifications?
No, contract. But normative text in general. So
Normative
it's
text
the same
in general.
thing. You put different name. It could be agreements. It could be term of service. It could be legal contract.
Yes. But so you see here we can take the case study. So here we would go specific to see, because actually terms of services are not so wild in my opinion. So like general contracts. So if we go to look only in terms of service, you have maybe an easier task to start with than looking at general legal text. So do you have any points?
No, we are working, contributing small, but it's, the whole thing is a project that I also have the same aim in general. It's very ambitious. What John and what Raul are doing is a very small part of it. It's quite a lot or something. So for instance, John will be working on this CNL, and then we are talking with machine learning people also, trying to see how to go from the natural language to the CNL, but that we don't have a solution. But the same summarization that you mentioned, there are people here working on how to obtain summarization automatically from natural language using some machine learning technique.
Yes.
So there are a lot of things that people are doing things here and there.
Yes.
Getting a solution for the whole thing is quite complex.
I think concentrating on natural languages, what you are doing, I don't yet see a very good purpose somehow. Why would you use so much energy into these natural languages when you could start when you could start with controlled natural languages. When you start with controlled natural languages, you don't have all the problems with any natural language, with general natural languages.
These types of services, I mean, ultimately you're going to have a case study, and this case study is going to begin with a document written in natural language. Isn't that true?
Yes.
So this is, I mean,
Yes, but you are building the technology to take any natural language and to make it into this.
no,
maybe
but
controlled
it's
natural.
not even.
But
even if
what
you
I
don't
would
have
make-
technology,
because it's
still,
yes.
But even if you don't have an automatic technology which automatically causes natural language, I mean, you still have to design your CNL very carefully, and if not automatically, at least manually, you have to study how to do the modeling. So the issue is obviously very relevant. Whether it's automatic or not is a sort of sub issue. I mean, I guess you agree that, as you said, you want to go smoothly between NL and CNL.
Yes, for the existing ones, but I think there is a lot of work in this part, and then instead of looking at the natural language and to going here, because when you have this part done, and then you say, okay, let's use just controlled natural language. Let's do what IBM does with their software specification and just write it directly in this controlled natural language. And actually, there's something called clear text. Maybe you want to, maybe I think it's like that. So it's also another tool to work with controlled natural language. And what it says that you are learning to write this controlled natural language while typing. So while trying to write, it will not allow you to write all sorts of stuff. So you are learning, it's not difficult to learn to write controlled natural language actually. This is what they prove this time. So what I'm saying is, okay, let's have all this technology into place, helping, verifying and so on. So then once you have this, you would say, okay, let's write controlled natural language. Let's don't write wild as we are doing until now. Let's write controlled natural language. Then I think everyone will start writing controlled natural language for their terms of services. And you don't need this technology to go from natural language to a controlled natural language.
But
You will not need it then.
I agree with you once you have the technology there in many years from now.
Once you have this technology, then you will not need this.
Yeah. But the question is that how do you learn the CNL? And it's a very difficult exercise. I mean, and one way to do it is by taking many, and a lot, 100 and 1,000 of documents in natural language. So you learn what are the right words that you need to put in your control natural language. Because if you do it the other way around, as we did it before, you start with the logic and you get the CNN. This CNN is very low level and it's very abstract, and you don't manage to represent even a small fragment of the real natural language. So what you are trying to do now is the other way around. John is manually taking text in natural language and writing a tabular form to try to understand, okay, how the CNL should look like.
Yes.
What are the key issues? Because you don't choose the CNL. The CNL you choose is domain specific. Yeah. How do you choose this? Depends on the properties you want to prove.
Yes, I have to look more close, but I think just taking attempt to control English, that's all you need, I would say.
Is it what your
Because
experience?
attempt to control English already gives you, this is the CNL. So you don't need to build, I don't understand why you want to build your CNL. So what you do this, and then you have, in the ontology, in the knowledge representation, you have the actual terminology. So the actual actions, you just need to know that that is a verb. So that's what you mean. But what exactly it means, you don't need to have it in the grammar. You have it on the side in the ontology. But what the grammar here says, it says it can recognize, this controlled natural language will just give you a first order logic formula, interpretation of the text. And it will make correlations between who is doing the action and then the next sentence, if the same entity appears in the next sentence and so on.
So if you write something in attempt to and you get this discourse representation structure out of it, I mean, you're assuming that you can do something with anything that you get from attempt to, but it's not clear. I mean, you haven't even defined the stuff that's in the middle.
No. Yes. So I assume that I take this logic, that logic formula that attempted gives me from the controlled English that they use, and I can use that one to build the model. This is what I'm saying. So I'm not trying to make the controlled natural language somehow so that it fits or that I know already what the model is somehow. So if norms appear, so modalities, because these norms are usually treated in modalities, you may, you must, and so on. So if norms appear, then I should employ some logic for norms. When I look into the logic formation that this one generated. So I would work only with the logic. So the logic that with the logic formula, in the first order logic formula.
No, I don't disagree. I think
It's cross representation theory.
this is a good way of going, but
So somehow,
you
so
seem
this
to
is how I'm thinking.
you seem to imply that this whole thing is easy, and then going from NL to Attempto is somehow hard. It's not
Yes.
the case. It's all hard.
No, no.
Just
No,
focusing on different hard parts.
I'm saying not that this is easy. I'm saying that this is required. So
Yeah, okay.
this is required. Whereas
Maybe
going
that's-
from
maybe
natural
that's
language to controlled natural language, once you have this, maybe you don't need that other step. So this is what I'm trying to say. Maybe it's better to focus energy on this, because if you go from natural language to controlled natural language and you don't have all this reasoning part, well, okay. So you still need the reasoning part.
But I mean, there are already some reasons for Attempto, so you
Yes.
could, I mean, not have this project in mind, but something else which uses Attempto.
Yeah, Attempto has a reason attached to it. So you can already do a lot of work only with Attempto.
For me as a person, without any deep knowledge about natural language processing, this seems like a good idea to try to get rid of as much natural language processing as possible, because that seems extremely hard. So if you can do some kind of, you can start with something that is less natural than full natural, as you
Yeah,
described.
so this is
Seems
also
like an attractive idea. It could be applied to in other domains also, maybe to try to get rid of the full complexity of the natural language.
Actually, in engineering, I know that they are using controlled languages to write their specification, to write their documentation for the software, for example. They are for the hardware that they build, so they are already using. But that is in-house controlled language, actually. Over the years.
What is this specific example?
I know that IBM uses, but I don't know exactly what. So I know that IBM specifications are written in constrained language, but I don't know exactly. So I have to look it up. Yes.
Yeah, I want to be more clear. When we talk about controlled language, natural language, we have a subset of English, for instance, that we have just in terms of services. But when we have Attempto, we have some subset of those languages in terms of services that you want to make it easier to read by, or
So
model.
the subset,
Actually, you had models, and you make subset of you make readable language for humans, and you make
Yes,
it as a sub
exactly.
make it restrict whole
Exactly.
language to those.
Yeah. So that's why you have this both arrows. When you have a constrained natural language, you have
from
this
models
two
to
arrows.
the natural to language. Then you want to make it restrict to people to use just words in Attempto, not in the.
Exactly. This is what. But I think we are over time, so then soon the next lectures will come. So I guess we can stop here and we can discuss in the breaks. No? Thank you for today. So here I was planning to open some more pages, so but you can. I will make the slides available if you want links.